Hey, Powell, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Firstly, huge congratulations on the film. I caught it at Fantastic Fest and I absolutely loved it, especially the segment Coochie Coochie Coo. It was because it's our first kind of segment after the wraparound starts, so it's our first kind of kickoff into the Halloween madness. So it was a solid way to start.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So I wanted to get started by asking, because this one has a lot of like kind of classic Halloween bag of trick tropes kind of
Mhm.
thrown into it. So I was curious on, but between you and Anna, what if there was any particular films that y'all pulled from inspiration in shooting this?
Funny enough, mostly what we watched was Rec, which, Paco being in our lineup was kind of surreal for us. So yeah, really I've loved that movie for years. And so of course when I heard we were gonna do a VHS, I was like, we just gotta keep studying this and watching this over and over. We also did a night where we watched Lake Mungo too. But nothing explicitly Halloweeny.
Nice, because it's funny you mentioned Rec because I mean again Paco in the lineup. But also, I just saw Rec for the first time not too long ago. My podcast co-host was like, "You got to watch it," and I was like, "All right." And then I saw Paco was directing a VHS, so I'm like, "Okay, now I have to watch it."
Yeah.
And watching Rec, it felt like a feature-length VHS segment.
Dude,
Um,
such a good movie. The scares are perfect. I've loved it for years.
oh no, it's so good. I'm mad at myself. It took me so long to watch it until until recently. Um, But so were you big on the VHS franchise prior to this? Were you a fan of the series?
Yeah, I mean, my so Patrick Young, who I've now made five movies with. I've known him since college. He's one of my best friends. We have always bonded over just watching every horror movie we can find. Yearly, we host a Halloween marathon for our friends, and so of course VHS has found its way into, you know, the lineup of either that or what we watched in college together. So yeah, it's I'm not going to say that I've missed one or two of the most recent ones, but I might have missed one or two of the most recent ones. But just because it's been busy, I've been shooting. So
No, for sure, for sure. And you have a pretty impressive resume. I was doing some research beforehand. You worked on Mr. Crockett, which
yeah.
also kind of utilizes old found footage style shooting. So I was wondering, like, having that in your resume and now VHS, what is it that you think goes into making a good found footage project from a cinematography angle?
I'm glad you brought up Crockett because the team that did the color and analog transfer in that were also on VHS with me. And actually Danny Erb, who's our production designer, he runs a company called Circuit Bent TV that does a whole bunch of analog glitches and CRT transfers. And so he was with me every step of the process on this. So I think what we tried to do on both movies, it's always comes from a place of like you can't just slap a filter on any footage and expect it to look authentic. You can't just be like, well, I'm going to film it how I normally film something and then put a VHS plug in on it or run it through like a tape out and expect it to actually feel authentic. I think when it came to this one, as far as Anna's intent with the found footage element of it was really making sure it felt like two teenage girls were really the ones holding the camera and actually, we're the ones guiding the whole thing. It had to feel authentic in every way. And so, her main note to me at the end of every take was often, at least the first day or so when we were getting started, was looks too good. You got to fuck the handheld up more. Like we got to really like, you know, keeping keeping every element as invisible and effortless as possible, I think, is what makes a good found footage piece. You gotta, if you start drawing attention with your lighting or you start drawing attention with some fancy camera move that doesn't make sense for the world, you're gonna lose people. And I think the authenticity is what is resonating with a lot of people about Coochie Coochie Coo.
I agree, and the authenticity is a big, element in the VHS franchise, especially sort of the later ones where it's all very, very 90s, very 80s centric. So that accuracy and that that authenticity is so important. So I'm glad you pointed that out. And I mean, it looks accurate. And you had talked about, keeping the elements invisible, and that kind of brings me to my next question. I could talk about the movie now because this will air after the
Yeah.
movie has been released. So the house that the two girls go into, first off, creepy as hell. Kudos to the set design. I really adored it. But the house feels almost endless at times.
Yeah.
So I was curious what the process was on kind of splicing all that together to make a seamless, almost endless haunted house from the perspective of what's supposed to be almost a oneer with the
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah, Anna gets a lot or all of the credit for that, honestly. I mean, as much as people like to think that DPs have that much say in, where the camera goes and what it's doing, I think it's a lot of the times, especially in found footage, directors don't get enough credit for just how meticulously plotted this needs to be to feel like it isn't plotted at all. She had, I mean, every single piece of blocking, scare, everything was overheaded from beginning to end, with not only all the actors and the mommy's placement, but even with it being loose handheld, she had plotted every beat for the camera as well. And so, with minor adjustments for the logistics of actually being in the space, you could have looked at the overheads and basically watched the same movie as what we shot. So for us, as far as working with the practical house, it actually, first off, isn't that big, and the geography isn't what we showed.
Mhm.
When they run in through the front door, we actually had to move over one room because the main room didn't open into the right sort of geography for us. It opened up into a huge foyer with a big open archway that leads into another room that, like, it didn't make sense that they had to follow a linear path. And so we do a stitch on the way in where we end up a room over, and that's why we don't show behind us, because it's just the corner of a house and there isn't actually a door there. And so there was a lot of um, figuring out how to hide geography and then stitch together different rooms through whip pans or like um, tilt down, tilt up. We, at the end of the day, our mission going in was use as few glitches as possible. And the ones that are currently in the edit, at least to my knowledge, are basically there just to help with pacing and not because we didn't actually shoot it continuously as a oneer. It wasn't like nothing didn't work. You just watch something at the end, you're like, we're lingering here too long and we got to break it up. But no, to Anna's credit, the whole thing was plotted as one big, actually seamless oneer, which was really cool to shoot. It just involved a lot of hiding stuff and cleverly running to certain rooms and not showing what was along the way, so we didn't ruin the surprise of it, coming back later. So it was honestly surprisingly tough shoot. When I feel like people think found footage like, oh, it's a handy cam and it's shaky and you can do whatever you want. And honestly, it it was one of the more like technically complex things I think I've ever shot.
Well, yeah, I can imagine because I mean, first off, I love how you went through all that because that's exactly what I was wondering is like the geography of the house versus what we actually see in the
Yeah,
film because there's lots of shifts in how the house looks like there's doors that go missing,
yeah,
which was I mean a great effect. And when you mentioned going into the front door and having to shift over, I immediately thought of that scene where they turn around and the door is not there. So that's just I love going behind the scenes on the set like that and getting that fresh perspective. So I definitely appreciate you sharing
yeah,
all that insight there. I love that. And as far as it being technically complicated, I mean I can definitely understand that because there's so many moving parts to this.
yeah,
There's a lots of I mentioned in my review that there's like elements of like mad scientist body horror going on. So there's
yeah,
like the weird milk machine mechanics.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, lots of moving parts in this segment, which I really dig.
Thanks. Yeah, these don't get a lot of money. Like I think all the directors are really good at stretching the budget they are given, but um, part of what we had to be so creative with was we couldn't dress the entire house 360. We got close actually by the end of it, but there's certain rooms where if I turned around, you would have seen just clean walls. And so what's on camera is exactly what was designed, and everything else they had to save money on and put it onto what was on screen. So we had to really know exactly where we were looking at all times because it had to be thrifty, it had to be smart.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I love that about VHS, how it
Yep.
takes filmmakers and it makes them kind of really stretch the limit for what they could do. And I think that's what makes the franchise so special.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular favorite Halloween film? Because this movie's probably gonna make it into my Halloween seasonal rotation after this. It's very comfy kind of Halloween
Yeah.
feels in a disturbing way. So I was curious, do you have a particular favorite Halloween film you go to every season?
Well, when I was a kid, my parents always would put on this animated movie called The Halloween Tree, which has a surprising cast for what it was, just this kids movie. And so nostalgia wise, I always give that a rewatch. Leonard Nimoy plays this sort of mad, uh, not science. He's like a evil sorcerer ghost man. I don't know who, like, yeah, it's a if you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch. It's a very bizarre kids movie and tackles a lot of heavy subjects like death and kids moving on from their friends dying. It's really insane for what it is. It's based on a Ray Bradbury story.
I'll have to check that out. I love weird, offbeat, kind of eerie children's movies. I actually just watched Return to Oz earlier this year for
Yeah.
the first time. If you've seen that one, very freaky Wizard of Oz sequel. Yeah, very off-putting at times, but it's a well-made, great film. But it's off-putting when you remember this is like a Disney Channel
Totally.
original movie sequel to the Wizard of Oz. But no, I love that. I'll have to add that to my watch list.
Good, please do.
So yeah, well, thank you so much again for chatting with me today. It was a pleasure going behind the scenes on VHS Halloween's segment Coochie Coochie Coo. Um, is there else you want to add before signing off?
uh No, I mean, I guess the thing I would always suggest, if you enjoy Coochie Coochie Coo, the first movie that Anna and I did with Hulu, Appendage, is very much to her taste as well. And so if you haven't checked that out and you like this one, I think you'll probably enjoy that too.
Awesome, I'll have to check that out. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. VHS Halloween is available to stream on Shudder. Uh, hopefully, this interview will be up after October 3rd, but it comes out October 3rd. So check that out. And yeah, have a happy Halloween.
Love it.
Thanks.
Yep.